in my impression, is that the RDA for folate is hard to meet on a carnivore unless you eat lots of liver, or like 12 eggs plus eggs. Doesn't folate RDA matter on carnivore? Yeah, far less. We're getting enough choline to actually support the second methylation pathway, choline betaine. And there's also a bit of a, with B6 actually plays a bit of a role. And the key other factor is riboflavin. So riboflavin upregulates, and also if people don't have specific genetics, the majority of people, it's only 4%, this guy does have that problem. So I have to have a bit of liver and quite a few eggs. But most people don't. So if you don't have that genetic SNP, you're not that 4%. Most people tend to not. If you do a blood test and your folate levels are normal, most carnivores are, because you can still convert other precursors in the body to produce folate. So that's not an issue, let alone you don't need as much, because riboflavin, which is very high in animal foods, will actually increase the enzyme function, which means you need less to do more. So it's less of an issue. So that's where the issue, and that's why, a number of people have done on a carnivore diet a test for folate, B12, and all sorts of things, and they found their folate levels are either at the higher end or in the middle range, in a normal range. So there's no issue there. So there's not going to be an issue unless you've got certain genetic SNPs. Our requirements for a lot of nutrients goes down. Remember, we use a number of enzymes to do things, and they need cofactors. When you're actually on a carnivore diet, animal-based diet, you actually need less of those cofactors, less of those enzymes. And so, thiamine, as an example, you only need 50%, because you're only using one. Fat and protein only use one of the enzymatic pathways, not both. It's only anything that's coming from pyruvate, anything that's coming from glycolysis, it basically requires both enzymatic pathways. So that's just one example, and there are many other examples. So the requirements for folate are different, somebody on a carnivore diet compared to somebody on a veganurized diet or a STAD diet or whatever. The same thing with thiamine. Thiamine requirements are double that on a standard diet, and even more on a veganurized diet, and they still don't get enough, because the highest source out there is pork for thiamine. So most people don't eat pork, piggy, for their own reasons, even though it's the lowest deuterium fat in the domestic animal kingdom. But that's another story for another time. I've repeated it many times. So yeah, it's not an issue, pretty much. And a lot of the RDAs have been done as an average of the population. They're not even scientifically determined. Pretty much. So when you look at a species-appropriate diet supporting certain enzymatic pathways, providing enough of the precursors, also upregulating certain pathways, allowing for better recycling of certain things, using less, because anything that has to do with carbohydrate metabolism requires more resources. Surprise, surprise. So, because it's not appropriate and needs to be sorted, possibly. So that's another reason.